Start. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. We'll start with any questions. Are there any questions? Yes, Ankit. Yeah.
So, I have a question. It's not related to the last class. Basically, last week an incident happened with me where I was getting something repaired, and the repair people, they washed up the job, and then they I strongly suspect that they cheated me out of a sum of money to because I was in a sort of helpless situation where I couldn't really fix it by myself. So, I mean, how do I view this in a way where I can recognize that those people were unscrupulous or unfair, but yet not feel any ill will towards them or feel sort of victimized about it or something?
See, there's so much good in the worst of us. There's so much bad in the best of us, right? Um, we we are brought up with a very um, sort of fantasy idea of the world, uh, and our idea of the ideal world. You tell any 10-year-old child, what does your ideal world look like? There'll be lots of colors and castles and clouds and candies and happy looking things and cute looking things and lots of greenery. I mean, the idea of the world in our heads is, oh, it's a fantasy, and so the ideal world is meant to have you know everything that is nice and neat, and you know we in many ways don't grow out of that fantasy, even though we we understand it's childishness, but that idea of and that expectation of perfection and correctness to exist doesn't leave us. What you have to reconcile with is that good and bad are essential aspects of the world. The world has been given a name in Sanskrit. It's called Dvandva. Dvandva means opposites. Opposites exist everywhere, and that's essentially the world. They exist in you. You have a kind person in you, you have a vicious person in you, potentially. It's about what, out of your own education and volition, you give surface to. Sometimes circumstances can bring the worst out of you. And honestly, you'll also appreciate that we are to a large extent, to a great extent, victims of our circumstance. And in good circumstances, we manage to be good, put us in a tough spot. People fight in Delhi over parking spaces. Someone was beaten, almost beaten, bruised to a point of grave injury in Gurgaon, in so-called respectable housing localities, over a parking space. Uh, the lack of wealth makes people do, the attachment to wealth and subsequent lack of wealth makes people do things that are unscrupulous. Is that all that is to them? No, you know, you see that same person with that child, and you'll perhaps see a very loving father. I'm just giving a possible, you know. So unfortunately, you only dealt with their cheating side. Maturity in thought will make you laugh it off. That doesn't mean you allow them to cheat you. Right? You're stern with them, perhaps even make them. I mean, if most of these things we realize in retrospect. Arey, I got fleeced. Uh,
Yeah.
so no one, we should be street smart. We should be well informed about things so that we're not taking for a ride. Absolutely, but you have to take it as a game where there are going to be you know
Yes, yes.
such people. And if you're attached to an idea of a fantasy world, or if you're attached to see, if you're very attached to that object which they cheated you of, for example money, you will be very affected. You'll be complete. Today's Monday, 8th of July 2024. Monday, 8th of July 2024. Next July 2025, you'll still be complaining about it to me.
Yeah. So you don't
If you're
want
very
to.
attached about, if you're very attached about something which you have lost or been cheated of, you'll still be. So that has nothing to do necessarily with the nature of the other person. It has to do with your attachment of that object, your constant thought flow about it and obsession about it. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. जो उसने किया वो गलत किया, वो तो हमें सब
Yeah.
मालूम है. Talking about your mental obsession with that thought कि ये हुआ है, ये मेरे साथ हुआ है, ये उसने किया है. जानते हो इतने खराब लोग होते हैं. It's only because you lost something you are attached to, right? In this case, money. You lose your attachment to it. You develop this worldview that the world is full of gray, full of gray people, and you have to. And this is not only a stranger, people in and around you,
Yeah.
full of gray. Uh, if you attune to that mindset, then you'll laugh it off. It'll be a joke you crack to your wife over lunch. Uh, don't tell her the amount you lost though. Just 1 second, I'm just coming back. So, acha, the extent to which you're attached to what you have been lost or cheated about, to that extent you'll have ill feeling about the other people also. The more intense the ill feeling will be. See, what is anger? Anger is desire interrupted. Your desire to possess that wealth or that object or whatever, or your desire for fairness. I don't know. It could be a tangible desire, intangible desire, whatever. Wherever that desire is interrupted, there will be anger. Now, if it's a very strong attachment, it's a very strong desire, and that is denied, there'll be extreme anger. You won't be able to stop thinking about it. Okay, maybe you can write off a few thousand rupees, a few lakh rupees. See, I'm not saying whether you should or should not be disturbed. Please don't get me wrong. I'm no one to tell you what you should or should not be disturbed about. But I am disturbed about similar things. But I'm talking about the principle. Why you get disturbed? Why you have that ill feeling? Hmm? And as you develop an objectivity about the world, seeing the world as it is, you laugh these things off. Especially if you're Omji's age, you've seen many things, you've seen many times, you've seen many periods, you've seen many ups and downs. So you realize this is a part and parcel of life.
तो सर जी मैं सिर्फ यही कहना चाहता हूँ कि ठगी होने का इतना दुख होता है, वो तो है ही, लेकिन इसके विपरीत में अगर हम सोचिए कि कबीर ने क्या कहा है ठगने के ऊपर। कबीरा आप ठगाइए और न ठगिए कोई, आप ठगे सुख उपजे और ठगे दुख होए। ये दुख का कारण जो है, हम लोग क्या करते हैं कि लोगों को ठगने की कोशिश करते हैं। ये इन्होंने तो ठीक ही बोला है कि किसी ने इनको ठगा है, तो उसको सुख मिलने वाला नहीं है उसको भी। लेकिन हम अपनी वृत्ति में भी किसी को ठगने की कोशिश मत करिए। हम आर्गुमेंट से ठगते हैं, पैसों से ठगते हैं, कई तरीके से ठगते हैं,
Absolutely.
हर आदमी को ठगने की कोशिश करते हैं। तो कबीर ने ये इतनी प्रोफाउंड बात कही है। कबीरा आपको तो मैंने बताया ही है। तो
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I think that's a great. I mean, Kabira is always a reminder of these simple, beautiful things.
The biggest example,
You have to see the childishness of. You have to see the childishness of those who have cheated you.
Yeah, I mean,
Realize that they are they and it's उनकी मजबूरी भी हो सकती है। हाँ, उनकी मजबूरी भी हो सकती है।
I mean, yeah, you really don't want to, like, sort of remember this or, like, sort of be deeply affected by it, which is why I even brought this question up. Like, you don't want to, like, spend time on it. You want to move forward from it, but you, at the same time, you don't want to pretend that this didn't sort of happen, or this could happen to you again as well. So yeah.
Absolutely, don't pretend it didn't happen. If you pretend it didn't happen, then it'll happen to you again. Learn from it. Oh, see, it's I mean, it's a virtue to be well informed, and
Yeah.
so don't pretend. No one is saying pretend it didn't happen. We're talking about that ability to laugh it off. And see, another important, if you're extremely attached to something, now, your values will also be compromised. Means किसी ने आपको ठगा, आप में भी वो प्रवृत्ति होगी दूसरे को ठगने की. If you're extremely attached, it's almost a it's rajas. You're driven to it. So you have to see the childishness of it. कि उसे लगता है उसको कुछ मिलने वाला है आपको ठगने से, कुछ मिलने का तो है नहीं. एंड द फनी थिंग इज, जो ठगता है वो एजिटेटेड है, जो ठगा जाता है वो भी एजिटेटेड रहता है. दैट्स द कॉमेडी. उसको पैसे मिलने से कुछ खुशी आने वाली है, खाली उसके डिजायर्स बढ़ रहे हैं, और कुछ नहीं है, और कुछ नहीं है. कई लोगों की हाँ
No, very well.
एक हिसाब, कई लोगों की मजबूरी भी होती है. I don't know, it drives them to do such unscrupulous things. I'm not we're not justifying what they've done. There's another aspect with which you can abate the thought that they're victims of their nature, they're victims of their circumstance. These are different ways in which you quieten the mind. That's about it. And this is not made up stuff. This is actual. This could actually be the case. That's it.
Yeah.
You know. But if you are very attached to what you have been cheated of or what you have lost, it'll be very difficult for you to tell yourself all of this. If I come and tell you this, please don't talk all of this. You have no idea what this means to me. See, what is tamasic renunciation? Tamasic renunciation is giving up something which you are ignorant about, which you don't know the value of. Right? You know the value of what you have lost, and that's why you're not able to give it up. In a way, it's a good thing. It's not tamasic renunciation. Pretending it didn't happen would be tamasic renunciation. We just have to climb the steps to sattvic renunciation. But the good news is at least we're not tamasic about it. This sense of attachment in us is a sign of rajas. It's a good stepping stone to sattva.
Another thing you said is like, we have to recognize that there's gray in the world. So how do we do that, like, while not developing a sort of cynical attitude towards the world as well, like having that kind of attitude where we know that there's gray, but you don't want to feel negative about the world. You still want to see the beauty in the world, right?
Why does gray make you negative?
It doesn't. It could potentially lead you to think, to view the world a little cynically. I mean, again, I
See,
think
gray is in
like you said last week.
equal measure of white and black. Sorry?
No. Like you said last
See,
week.
if we only, again, huh. Now, was that incident last week the only thing that happened in your life?
No.
If you actually assess your life, if you actually assess your last week, think about the number of terrible experiences, think about the number of beautiful experiences. Just do a simple math. 90-10 it'll be. 90% good things happen, 10%. See, we are very demanding. That's the problem. It's the same fantasy symptom. We expect the world to be a fantasy. Everything should function. One or two things don't work out. Big deal. थोड़ा तो ड्रामा होना चाहिए लाइफ में. So, cynicism is again tamasic. Extreme attachment creates cynicism. If you become fixated on one thing, the human mind has a tendency to become fixated on the thing it doesn't get. It ignores everything else it gets. It ignores everything else that's functioning. Pull yourself out. Cynicism.
I thought that there's no point, like, for me to like keep talking about it or tell anyone else about it, like, or even say things like, okay, this won't have happened outside of India or something like that. Like, just recognize that something like this can happen and just move on from it rather than keep.
Objectivity. Assess why it happened. Assess the kind of people you're dealing with and the potential that can happen. Here it will happen in a certain measure. You think in the West there won't be cheat. People don't cheat. People cheat in different league altogether. There's a crazy amount of cheating that happens in the West. If you think that it doesn't happen, it's a different league altogether. That's true unscruple. There's no emotion of cheating. So of course, there are many things the West does well. There are some provisions and systems which are much better enforced in the West. That's a different thing altogether. Yeah, you can appreciate. But to think that any place is a fantasy. If I could be there, this wouldn't. These are all different ways in which your attachment is expressing. It's a continuity of thought. That's all it is. Your mind is finding new ways to dwell on the thought. Assess, be objective about what has happened, why has happened, so that it doesn't repeat.
would you say in the same lens if you've been cheated in relationships?
Huh?
Would you say give the same argument if you're
Huh.
cheated in relationship?
See, when you're cheating in a relationship, you have to see the situation as it is, right? And it's not a again we grew up with this fantasy idea of relationships, and everything is supposed to be perfect. No, relationships are inherently imperfect. What matters more is how uh, do people deal with the situation. I i I don't want to pass a sort of a generalized judgment about how one should deal with the situation of cheating. It really depends on the situation. It really depends on the situation. But it requires enormous maturity among people. The immaturity of people expresses in ignoring the situation. There comes in a lot of fear in not being able to address the situation, not being able to take the right decision because of fear. All sorts of other. Your attachment plays out in these ways. So, and as far as philosophically understanding that, you know, this is the limitation and weakness of people. See, you don't have to go all the way to cheating. That's an extreme example. In your day to day, you have to assess your partner and expect the right things from them. They're not going to be perfect. They're going to be emotional. Their nature will play out in ways. You have to assess it. You have to accommodate for it. You have to be a support for it.
As you just said, the biggest crux is attachment. I
Hmm.
realize we are most attached to our own ego. That is why मेरे हिसाब से नहीं हुआ या मैंने वो बोला वो नहीं किया and we get upset. It's just because it's our attachment with our ego.
Hmm.
That is why that's the most blatant thing which happens every time.
और जितना वो है मतलब उतना nature will beat you for it. See, ego is like ice. Idea is it has to melt away. But if it's a very big, thick block of ice, it won't melt easily. If it's small pellets or cubes, it'll easily melt. But if it's a big, thick block, it'll require a lot of energy to melt. So what do they do to ice? Big blocks of ice. They beat it. Nature will beat it. Nature will. If you don't dissolve your ego, nature will forcibly make you. And there's a lot of suffering in that. There's a lot of suffering in beating. There's no need to go through that experience. No suffering is essential. People say ये तो लिखा हुआ था, ये तो suffering necessary था. No, it's not. Your own stupidity has brought it upon you.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask regarding this only, that this is regarding an object or attachment to objects that can be understood in terms of detachment to the situation, and not creating that sort of an attachment that you think constantly about what happened with you. But when it comes to experiences or dealing with people, and sometimes negative situations occur where uh, someone has said something or done something that has caused you deep hurt or uh, some sort of trauma or something. So in that case, you view it in terms of not being too attached to the ego, is it?
Absolutely. What is detachment? We've just been through a whole chapter on renunciation. What is detachment? Define detachment.
Better question.
Detachment is renunciation. Renunciation is detachment. What is detachment?
Not being attached.
And what is that?
Just placing the right value on.
It is placing the right value on things. It's objectivity. It's understanding things as they are. There's no difference in material objects, people, people's opinions. Okay, people people say, oh, it's very easy in terms of objects, as if it's easy to be detached to objects. No, it's not. Huh? I can understand with regards to objects, but not with regards to relationships. You think it's easy to detach from objects?
I was not attached to his object. No, that's why I'm saying.
Relationships break down because of attachment to objects. Uh, so, it's, but the principle is the same. You have a excessive, exaggerated value for what that object will bring you, what that relationship will bring you, what that person will bring you, what their opinion will bring you. If I get that, I will be happy. That idea, that's attachment. You've placed your entire well-being, your entire happiness on that thing, tangible or intangible, object or person's thought. You're playing a risky game. Attachment is a very risky game. It's like high stakes poker. Very risky. It's a calculated move, no doubt, but it's like if you lose what you're attached to, satyanash.
सब जी जो मैंने सीखा है अपनी जिंदगी में,
हाँ
तो
जी।
दो चीजें हैं इसमें। एक तो है कि रिस्पॉन्स और दूसरा है कि रिएक्ट। हम किस सिचुएशन में रिएक्ट करते हैं तो हम जनरली स्पॉन्टेनियस होता है रिएक्शन, स्पॉन्टेनियस होता है, एंड देन वी गेट एजिटेटेड एंड वी कैरी फॉरवर्ड दैट। अगर हम धीरे से सोचें कि हुआ क्या है, पैसा ही गया है ना, जाने दो यार, कमा लेंगे, उसमें क्या है। लेकिन लेसन तो दे दिया उसने मेरे को, उसने मेरे को बहुत कुछ सिखा दिया। बेवकूफ तो मैं बना, कोई बात नहीं है, अल्टीमेटली बेवकूफ तो नहीं बनूंगा ना। अगर ये सीख लिया तो बहुत कुछ है ना। तो उसने थोड़े से पैसे चीट करके हमारे को सिखा दिया। देखिए आज के दिन में स्पिरिचुअलिटी भी बहुत बड़ा एक वो हो गया है कि धंधा हो गया है कि लोगों को इतना ज्यादा सारी जिंदगी की कमाई भी छीनने को तैयार है वो लोग। स्पिरिचुअलिटी व्हेन यू आर दे मेक देम स्लेव, तो स्पिरिचुअलिटी भी हैज बिकम ए धंधा फॉर मेनी पीपल। तो ये तो बहुत छोटी सी बात है जो उन्होंने बोला है। तो ये हो जिंदगी में, यू इफ यू आर केयरफुल हाउ यू रिएक्ट। एंड ये तो आपने बिल्कुल ठीक बोला, शुरू में ही बोल दिया था कि इट हैज ए, जैसे कॉइन के दो साइड होते हैं, अच्छा भी होता है बुरा भी होता है। तो आपकी परख के ऊपर है, आपकी परख कैसी है, तो धीरे धीरे आपको समझ में आना शुरू हो जाता है। तो मेरा ख्याल तो इतना ही है।
You have to have a
Vision.
an attitude of gratitude कि यार मुझे लेसन तो मिला।
या बिल्कुल, इसमें बिल्कुल ठीक बोले आप।
आप हम पढ़ने जाते हैं, कितने पैसे खर्च करते हैं, पर कुछ सीखते नहीं है। यहाँ जिंदगी ने थोड़े पैसे के लिए सिखा दिया।
बाहर की कंट्री में मैंने देखा इतने बड़े चीज लगे हुए हैं।
कोई आपको, आप मार्केट जाते हो, मेरे साथ भी हुआ है, 6-7 महीने पहले हुआ था। मैंने थोड़े ज़्यादा विश्वास करके किसी से प्लाईवुड का ऑर्डर दे दिया था किसी को, और छट से पैसे दे दिए थे। प्लाईवुड, यू नो प्लाईवुड?
हाँ, I know.
We have century ply out here. No, we don't have century ply. Divya ji. So I was buying plywood. I wanted to give order for good ply. I didn't, and I also trusted that person. So I bought some quality of ply. Some of it was century ply. I thought I was going to get century ply. And in the middle, I got some other ply. In the middle, I got some durian ply. He sent 30 प्लाईवुड्स, बीच बीच में ठग लिया मेरे को। मैंने ना उसके पैसे रोक लिए थोड़ी बहुत, एंड आई डोंट फील बैड अबाउट इट। मैंने उसके पैसे रोक लिए, अभी भी मेरे को फोन करता है। उसने नॉट ओनली प्लाई, उसने सोच लो 200 हिंजेस का ऑर्डर दिया मैंने। 100 अच्छे हिंज दिए, 100 एकदम बेकार हिंज दिए, डुप्लीकेट माल। यार बाजार में लोग ठगते हैं, दैट्स ऑब्जेक्टिविटी। Rajas, what is Rajas? It's a strong desire which will make you do things even cross the line. हाँ। अगर आप बाजार में हो और लोग सोचोगे कि सारे हरिश्चंद्र बैठे हैं, that's not their fault, it's your fault. So you go to the market with the wrong expectation. Sorry, it's a good thing you learn the lesson. That's what Omji is saying. It's a good thing you learn the lesson and have that attitude of gratitude. थोड़े पैसे में आपने लेसन सीख लिया, नहीं
That's how
लोग लाखों लाखों करोड़ों करोड़ रुपए गवाते हैं। पूरी कमाई गवा देते हैं। You could have been an uneducated person cheated by a politician. Cash for what? Cash for land, job for land scam. People have lost their entire land titlement in the promise of a silly job. What happened in Bihar? Uneducated people lost their entire. Now you and I know the value of land and its value of assets versus the value for an opportunity. So life, easily you got a lesson. So you should have that gratitude. That's another perspective with which you can. Then your mind will be satisfied. Yeah. हो गया तो हो गया, चल. So these are all ways in which you can.
अभी उत्सव जी साइबर क्राइम इतने ज्यादा हो रहे हैं कि आई एम गेटिंग सो मेनी कॉल्स कि आपका वो पॉलिसी मैच्योर हो गया है, उसका पैसा दे दीजिए। एंड आई वाज ऑलमोस्ट गोइंग टू बी ट्रैप्ड। द ओनली थिंग वाइज थिंग आई डिडंट डू इज आई डिडंट ट्रांसफर द मनी। दे वर आस्किंग फॉर 50,000, 1 lakh and all that. I only lost once 1,000 rupees. So that has given me a big lesson. So 1,000 is good enough to lose. So उसके बाद में कान पकड़ लिए कि ये साइबर क्राइम बहुत बड़ा है। तो आई वेंट टू पुलिस स्टेशन ऑल्सो, देन आई लर्न एवरीथिंग कि गलती हमारी ही होती है कि हम लोग वी गेट कैरिड अवे एंड देन वी मेक अवर बिकॉज ऑफ इग्नोरेंस ओनली, इग्नोरेंस। तो आजकल तो बहुत अलर्ट होने की जरूरत है। साइबर क्राइम हाई, वेरी हाई स्केल में हो रहे हैं।
सॉरी टू से, एक सेल्स वाले का काम क्या है? आधा तो काम उनका ठगना ही होता है। इट्स अ वाइट कॉलर ठगना, नॉट ब्लू कॉलर ठगना, वाइट कॉलर ठगना। हमारे इंडस्ट्री
The advertisement.
हमारे इंडस्ट्री में एक इट्स अ ओपन जोक दैट इफ यू नीड अ बुलक कार्ट, माइक्रोसॉफ्ट विल सेल यू अ मर्सिडीज। इफ यू नीड अ बुलक कार्ट, वो ठगता ही है। एआई जैसे एआई आने से आपकी जिंदगी बदलने वाली है, और वो शो शा करता है, वो ठगना ही तो है। आपसे महीने में आप जहाँ 10 रुपये खर्च कर रहे थे, आपसे 100 रुपये खर्च करवाएगा। सॉरी टू से, बट sometimes I think about it. My entire job is now beyond a point. It matters on what your attitude is, right? That's why, if you're running a business, you have to have that attitude of, am I actually helping my customer? Am I helping the organization? Tomorrow, when you're doing any work, you should have that attitude, because that's what separates, say, you from any. That's what will separate you from any other person in the market. But the market is full of that. That's the definition of a market. Chances are you'll stumble upon 4 wrong things before you stumble upon the right things. आप कुछ भी करने जाओ, नई चीज करने जाओ, और कोई आपको बताएगा नहीं ये ऐसे ही होता है, नहीं, आपको सीखना पड़ेगा। 4 बार आप गिरोगे, bazaar mein. So laugh it off. That's my only suggestion. Huh? Laugh it off.
Thank you.
Okay. Meditation. So we concluded the chapter on renunciation, and renunciation heralds meditation. Renunciation leads to a state of meditation. An inner state of withdrawal, an inner state of detachment leads you to the path of practice of meditation. We've talked enough about it. We'll talk again about it. As we start reading, you'll see he'll reiterate how do you reach that state of meditation. Chapter 14.
Chapter 14 Meditation. Technique of meditation. A human mind stands out supreme amongst all living beings by virtue of possessing both gross and subtle intellects. The intellect is the faculty of thinking, reasoning, judging, deciding. It is designated as gross when this faculty operates in the terrestrial realm. As the thinking is confined to the precincts of the world, and when it transcends the terrestrial world to conceive the transcendental, it is termed subtle. The subtle intellect distinguishes the eternal from the ephemeral, the real from the unreal. It is used in meditation to attain spiritual enlightenment. No other being possesses this unique faculty. At best, animals can claim to have a rudimentary gross intellect. That which a dog distinguishes its master from a stranger, food from dirt, etc. But it cannot stretch beyond that. Beyond the minuscule part of the terrestrial world, no animal possesses a subtle intellect. The mind is merely a continuous flow of thoughts. It acts like a film in a movie projector. The film consists of a series of pictures. These pictures passing through the light in the projector project the movie on the screen. The rapid movement of the pictures produces the solidarity of the projection. A similar projection is this world. Your mind is like the film, and your thoughts the pictures. The rapid movement of thoughts through the light of consciousness, the self creates the solid, substantial world. Where there is no thought flow, no mind, there is no world. Even when the mind is temporarily cut off, the world is no more, as in deep sleep. When the thoughts are completely eradicated from the mind, the world disappears. The light of consciousness alone remains. You realize your divine self.
Since we have the luxury of contemplating upon these ideas, this is a very it's a very simple and significant idea. This world is, first of all, a projection of your mind. You may think, what an absurd statement. No, actually, there is a solid world. What does my mind have to do with it? How can you say that my mind is creating this solid world? But what you will appreciate is, or what you can perhaps at least appreciate is, as your mind, so your world. If your mind is very pessimistic, you'll see a very pessimistic world. If you've been cheated, your entire world, your entire week, your entire month becomes depressing. Depends on the enormity of the cheating. If you've been cheated of something significant, that can extend to years. Your mind is shaping the world. The world is the same as it is. But the way your mind is completely changed the way in which the world appears to you. A business person's mind is always thinking about business things, business. हाँ, they'll cross a plot. अरे इस plot का दाम बढ़ गया. They won't look at the beautiful trees and the shade and this and that. They look at क्या भाव चल रहा है आजकल. An artist's mind will see an artist's world. A musician's mind will see a musician's world. A musician will hear a bird chirp and say, "Oh, तो सुर में गा रहा है." As your mind, so your world. A child's mind will see a child's world, an adult's mind will see an adult's world. A sleepy mind will see a sleepy world. No mind, no world. When you go to sleep, what happens? The solid seeming world disappears. Where are you when you've gone to sleep? So, as your mind saw the world, and Vedanta goes to the extent of saying this world is a projection of your mind. It's just like how a film is projected in the screens. And it's something worth thinking about. You know what a film is, especially if you see those old school reels. It's just a series of images. It's the same thing in digital, nothing different. Same frames per second. It's just become digitalized. It's many frames, many images packed into a single second. When it's played together, it seems continuous. Your eyes see, I believe, 20, I don't know how many frames per second it sees. Your eyes see some amount of frames per second. I believe a general video is 15 frames per second or something like that. So because it's moving so fast, 15 frames per second, in 1 second it's gone. So many images have been played. And so it seems continuous. So a series of images create a continuous film. Similarly, a series of thoughts in your mind. Each thought is like an image. A conscious thought, a subconscious thought, whatever. Collectively, each thought is like an image. That collection of thoughts flowing continuously creates a series called the world. So just as a film is projected as a series of images, so is this world a projection of a series of thoughts. Where there is no thought, or where thought is controlled, the whole nature of the world changes. When you take this to an extreme, time passes very slowly when there's barely any thought. You would have noticed this. If you are in a place and you're kind of bored, nothing to think about, nothing to do, you have an immediate feeling, no, time is passing only. In 5 minutes, you've seen your watch 5 times. But if there are many things happening, if there's a lot of excitement, engagement, suddenly 1 hour will pass. Arey, kya ho gaya? Kya ho gaya? Your whole experience of time itself changes with the quantum of the thoughts, the speed of thoughts. If you take it to an extreme in meditation, and you've seen living examples of this, especially in this country, people sit for hours and hours and hours. So, the world is a projection of your mind. Your mind is a series of thoughts. The continuity of thoughts creates this solid seeming world. It's worth thinking about. And he continues.
The mind of the present generation is in a chaotic state. People's thoughts run widely in all directions, seeking material gain and sensual pleasure, which causes the mind to be agitated. An agitated mind cannot concentrate, much less meditate. The strategy of meditation is to converge the mind to single thought and ultimately annul it. The practice of meditation therefore requires a mind free from the pressures of extroverted pursuits. A mind that remains calm, composed, and has turned introvert. One attains that state through sustained physical, mental, and intellectual disciplines by practicing karma, bhakti, and jnana yogas, the paths of action, devotion, and knowledge. A mind thus turned introvert is made to chant a mantra, a word symbol representing the Supreme God, Brahman. The japa. Choose a mantra. During the chant, the mind may slip into other thoughts. It has the tendency to wander away. The intellect is employed to pull the mind back to the chosen line of thought. Thus, by repeated effort, the mind is kept focused on the chant.
See, everyone is reading this first line, and all my middle-aged and to-be senior citizens are saying, yes, yes, very true. The mind of the present generation is in a very chaotic state. आजकल तो क्या क्या होता है? They don't realize this was written when they were teenagers. Huh? Yashoji, this was written when you were a teenager. Your mind was, he was talking about you, not about me. Huh? You've lived your life through that chaotic state. We always think, this new generation, my God. This was true in 90. He wrote this first in 1980. How old were you then? Must have been 10, 12 years of age, 13 years of age, 7 years of age. Wow. This is not a new phenomenon. It's not that people's mind has suddenly become chaotic. The nature of the mind is chaos. See, there's no such thing as a peaceful mind. Please understand this. It's an oxymoron. You know an oxymoron? When you put two opposite words together, it's an oxymoron. It was, anyhow, I won't get into oxymorons. Peaceful mind is an oxymoron. What is the word for peace in one of the words for peace? One of the words for peace is Aman. Aman. What is Aman? Man. No man. You cannot have a peaceful mind. It's only when you don't have a mind you're peaceful. Means the extent to which you have controlled the mind. A controlled mind generates peace. The extent to which the mind is inflated, it is like a dance. So people think they're speaking for the next generation. No, they're speaking for most of us and most of you who've already been through all of this chaos. So you'll actually validate this. The mind is constantly running and chasing after material objects, sensual pleasures, emotions, all sorts of attachments. That causes endless attachment, endless agitation. So this is a mind that is going crazily in an outward direction. Now we've already discussed this n number of times. The entire spiritual process is about condensing the focus of the mind. Ultimately, it's going inward and becoming single-pointed thought. So reducing the quantity of thought flow, improving the quality of thought flow, changing the direction of thought flow. Reducing the quantity of thought flow, improving the quality of thought flow, changing the direction of thought flow. These are the three collective purposes of the spiritual disciplines. Karma yoga reduces the quantity of your thought flow. Bhakti yoga improves the quality of your thought flow. Jnana yoga shifts the direction of your thought flow. You go from being a very extrovert, agitated person to being calm, composed introvert through the spiritual disciplines. That mind which is capable of single pointed thought, that mind which has condensed the thought flow alone is qualified for meditation. Now, when the qualified mind is prepared, it is given a mantra. A mantra is nothing but another thought. A mantra is nothing but a thought. Something you stick your mind to. Now, it's a thought that you are inspired by. It could be the name of the Lord. It could be a deity which you are particularly driven to. Or it could be a concept. It could be a spiritual concept. I mean, a mantra relating to a spiritual concept. Shivoham, Shivoham. It's a concept. That mantra is that thought which generally a guru gives you to become fixated upon. And you chant continuously that mantra. That chant is called the jap. तो आप मंत्र के ऊपर जप करते हो. That's single pointed concentration. So meditation is nothing but, the definition of meditation is single pointed concentration upon a single thought. Single pointed concentration upon a thought to the exclusion of all other thoughts. Now the intellect, the role, what is happening within you? It's the mind that is chanting. आपका मन chant कर रहा है. आपकी बुद्धि जो है वो उस पे ध्यान दे रही है. It's focused on that. It's observing it. In fact, what it's observing is chant, pause, chant, pause, chant, pause, thought, silence, thought, silence, thought, silence. That's what it's observing. The second role of the intellect is to make sure कि जब आप इस पटरी पे चल रहे हो, it's a very, you're balancing, to ensure that you don't fall off. No disturbance, distraction comes. The other role of the intellect is to pull the mind back whenever there is a distraction. Dismiss any unnecessary thoughts. Anything else comes, it's like a dwarapalika, it's like a gatekeeper, not allowing any other thoughts to enter, gently dismissing anything that disturbs the chant. So the twofold role of the intellect, to keep the mind in check and to observe the chant. You will say, how is this possible? Yes, how is this possible? A mind that is riddled with worry and anxiety, a mind that is riddled with excitement also, is not qualified for meditation. आप बहुत उतावले हो, you can't sit quietly. So it's a state you reach after sustained practice. But it's important to understand what it is, because we have all sorts of fantastical ideas. कुछ जादू हो जाएगा, 10 मिनट बैठ जाएंगे तो दुनिया बदल जाएगी. You should meditate. The world will change. No, nothing will happen to the world. The world will remain as it is. कुछ नहीं बदलेगा. If you are looking for peace through meditation, भूल जाओ. You've been cheated. आपको ठग रहे हैं. इसमें क्या है, यहाँ तो कुछ पैसा नहीं जा रहा है तो हम ठगते जाते हैं. See, point is, people are happy to be cheated also in this, because they're not losing anything that they really value. Spirituality is a pastime. तो ठीक है, आज ये कर लिया, कल वो कर लिया.
No,
Big-
there are meditation and healing classes which take 2,000 rupees per 1 hour.
देखिए, what you have to understand is that meditation gives an instant gratification. तो उसमें लगता है कि 2000 का पैसा वसूल हो गया. और बताओ, पैसा वसूल हो जाता है, साधना वसूल नहीं होती है. बट साधना में क्या पड़ा है? मुझे तो पैसे से मतलब है, तो पैसा वसूल हो जाता है. जो बेच रहा है वो खुश, जो खरीद रहा है वो खुश.
The
बट
problem will
एक्चुअली
be
फनी द आयरनी इज, आप समझते नहीं हो कि आप ठगे जा रहे हो. दैट्स द
अपने
फनीएस्ट
लोग हम लोग सब बचपन से हर चीज को मनी से वैल्यू करते आए हैं ना. हर चीज उसकी वो वही चीज सीखते आए कि
बचपन से नहीं, जन्मों से. हाँ, बचपन से नहीं, जन्मों से. तो जो ये देख रहा है वो समझता है, वो हंसता है कि भाई ये क्या खेल चल रहा है. बट ये अलग ही खेल है. ये अलग ही खेल है, क्योंकि जो ठगा जा रहा है उसको लग रहा है कि उसको तो मिल रही है वैल्यू की चीज, और जो ठग रहे वो भी खुश. चलते रहो. Because it gives an instant gratification. Meditation gives you an instant gratification, and sorry to say, that's what you are looking for. That's what most of us are looking for. आप उसको सुकून दे दे. हाँ, हम आत्म साक्षात्कार नहीं होना चाहते, हमें सुकून चाहिए. भाई इसको ना थोड़ा बंद कर दो, थोड़ा क्या बंद कर दो. Funny thing is, it doesn't work permanently that way also. शुरू में थोड़ा चलेगा, beyond a point meditation will not work. But so it's important to understand what meditation is. Meditation is simply the art of maintaining the mind in a single point of thought. This is what he's going to talk about. Meditation is the art of maintaining the mind in focus upon a single chosen thought to the exclusion of all other thoughts. Exclusion of all other thought. Definition of meditation. And its purpose, it's a scientific technique to exhaust all your thoughts. It's a scientific technique to attain moksha, samadhi.
उत्सव जी, जब गुरु अपने शिष्य को मंत्र देता है तो उसके स्वभाव के हिसाब से ही उसको मंत्र दिया जाता है ताकि वो उसको साधना कर सके.
Absolutely.
और दूसरी बात जो अभी इन्होंने बोली है कि हर चीज पैसे से तोली जाती है, मैं आपको एक बहुत फनी इंसिडेंट अपनी लाइफ का बताता हूँ. जिंदगी में जब मेरे को पहली दफा इंटरनेशनल कंपटीशन में सिल्वर मेडल मिला राजकोट में, मैं बहुत खुश था कि भाई मैं मेडल जीत के आया हूँ. जब मैंने अपने लोगों को आके बताया तो एक बिजनेसमैन ने उछाल के देखा, उसने कहा कि रियल सिल्वर है. तो मैंने कहा रियल सिल्वर तो नहीं है. तो कहता कि फायदा क्या है. तो हर आदमी जो है वो पैसे के हिसाब से तोलता है, वो मेरे उत्साह को नहीं देखता कि भाई मेरे को कितनी खुशी हुई है कि मेरे को मेडल मिला है. उसके बाद तो खैर कई मेडल मिले, वो अलग बात है, लेकिन लोगों की जो वृत्ति है उसको इतने उछाल के ठनका के देखा उसने कि भाई रियल सिल्वर है कि. मैं कहा रियल सिल्वर तो नहीं है. अभी भी जितने भी मेडल मिले हैं कोई रियल नहीं होता, बट मेडल मेडल ही होता है. जो उसमें जो इज्जत मिलती है वो अलग बात है. तो लोगों का स्वभाव ही है पैसे से तोलना. तो पैसा हमारे साइकी में घुसा हुआ है.
चंद घंटों की खुशी देता है बस. चलो, anyway, with that thought we'll conclude today. We'll continue our discussion on meditation in the next class. Thank you, Omji, and thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you
so
on
much.
Wednesday
Thank
at 8 a.m.
you.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Hari Om.